Hello and welcome to another video by Rick Miracle Me in my series Freemasonry and Satanism. And I say this often enough. I could have named it Rosicrucians and Lucifer, or the Kabbalistic Jewish people and demons. This mystery religion, Freemasonry and Satanism. And certainly, I don't think too many people will deny this, we've been seeing a lot of satanic rituals and symbols involving the serpent. It's crazy. People talk about reptilian aliens. And then the serpent in the Bible tempted Adam and Eve. The dragon, the great dragon in China, in India. The American Indians had the serpent symbol. The Mayans had plenty of serpent symbols. So what are we to think? And then, of course, there's all kinds of symbols and historical accounts of demons and monsters and beings. And even in the Bible, Jesus casting out unclean spirits and demons. And even telling the Jews, ye are of your father the serpent. He was healing people, Jesus, and he added a commandment from God, is we are to love one another. Well, apparently the Pharisees and the Jewish rabbis, the people in charge 2,000 years ago, felt threatened by Jesus' message from God, the Savior. So they crucified him. 2,000 years. And not all Jews were involved. Jesus himself was a Hebrew and had many Hebrew followers. Called them Hebrews back then, not Jewish people. They didn't even have a J. So what are we to think? And then again, I learned doing my research that in the 1500s, the church, Rome, demanded that all of the Jewish people in Spain practicing some kind of Jewish religion convert to the Catholic religion, Christianity, or leave the country. He realized later that was a huge mistake. These conversos, the ones who converted and wanted to stay, also called Marranos, converted in name only and continued to practice this Jewish religion. So what was so disturbing about this Jewish religion? How many people know, especially we non-Jews, probably a lot of Jewish people don't even know, but what was causing so much turmoil with this so-called Jewish religion, and the church was trying to force them to convert? And then later on, when the Vatican, the Pope, had had enough and these conversos, Marranos, were being threatened, they even had the Inquisition. They were torturing these people, trying to get the truth out of them, whether they were still doing some kind of alternate religion instead of the religion of the church, the Vatican, the Catholic Church, the Pope. So even, like I said, Jesus said, ye are of your father the serpent. And in the Encyclopedia Judaica, I made videos on that, on the section in the Kabbalah. It says pretty much the religion or culture of the historic Jews was the Kabbalah. So I'm still a bit perplexed. I'm trying to figure this out. And then when I was reading about the Marranos and Conversos, and finally the Pope, during the Inquisition, when he was trying to interrogate many of these Converso Jews who were supposedly converted to Christianity, and the ones who didn't want to convert actually were left alone as long as they left the country. And they did leave. They went over to Asia, they went to Northern Europe, and so they weren't the ones that were the targets in the Inquisition. So anyways, one particular man was summoned before the Pope, a Ignatius Loyola, Spanish wealthy man, was a Jewish man and a Marrano converso. And maybe there was some kind of heated argument or some kind of deal struck inside the Pope's chambers. But when Ignatius Loyola, the converso, the Jew who said he converted to Christianity but apparently didn't, left the Vatican, a deal had been struck. They created an organization called the Jesuits. So they were created by the conversos, the Marranos, Jewish people, who did it so they could keep their wealth and stay in Spain, which was obviously a nice place to live. You know, it's right there on the Atlantic Ocean and the Mediterranean, good weather. Across the water was Africa. Across the water was Italy. It was probably a very good place to live. You could make a lot of money and had large estates in the ocean. So now we had the Jesuits, and apparently the Jesuits were in and out of the Vatican, the church, the Pope's favor. And in one particular situation, when the Vatican banished and demanded that the Jesuits cease to exist, do away with their organization, this particular Ignatius Loyola didn't want to do that, so he formed the part of forming the Illuminati. I've been going over this material, so you can see how the trail leads from the Jewish people to the Jesuits to the Illuminati under the Rothschilds, the banksters' control. And the Rothschilds, leader of the Illuminati, ordered Adam Weishaupt to invade or take over the Masonic lodges, the Freemasonic lodges, and other occult mystery religion organizations. So the whole thing just was being put all together as one huge organization, the Big Pyramid. You can see the charts if you go on Yahoo image site and put in the pyramid or the conspiracy, mystery religion, Zionism, Freemasons, Illuminati. You'll see all these pyramids with the labels. The higher up you go, you get to the all-seeing eye on the back of the dollar bill. So I was boggling my mind. I said, I'm scratching my head and going, what is this religion in Spain that was a thorn in the church's side? So apparently I knew from the Encyclopedia Judaica that the Kabbalah was pretty much the historic culture of the Jews. So I did some more research that was bugging me. And I have a huge notebook here, as you can see. I put in Yahoo image site Jewish magic. See if I got the thing here. So I got all these pictures, and I clicked each picture, which has a link to a site on the internet about Jewish magic. And I also went down to the pharmacy, and I printed out the pictures to try to see what they meant under Jewish magic. Apparently, this lady here is possessed by a demon. We've seen pictures of Miley Cyrus. I've shown them too. And a lot of other people, and accusations of Satanism and possession and other occult activities. Skull and Bones and many organization people into witchcraft. George Bush, Skull and Bones. All kinds of books out there you can go buy and read them on Jewish mysticism, Jewish magic. And I've been going over this for quite a while, since 2005, making videos on the Freemasonry and Satanism series September 22nd, 2013. I'm on my 6th year. So I was trying to figure it out. What is this religion? And so I looked on these pictures, not knowing what the answer was, although I've done a lot of research and I know a lot about psychic research and the Hawaiian kahunas, the shamans, and walking on fire and controlling demons and spirits. And Carlos Castellanda taking peyote in Mexico and seeing this invisible reality. And ayahuasca drug in Peru. And I have the books here. We'll look at them for a second. So I have done a lot of research on this psychic topic, conversation. So I'm not without some knowledge, but I never really... Who wants to go read a book on witchcraft or something? Not me. And then we've all seen things like Harry Potter and all the different programming on TV, even the TV programming Lucifer. And of course they had I Dream of Jeannie and Bewitched and so much more, Frankenstein monsters and so many connecting of the dots. For example, CERN is in Geneva, the collider, and apparently they're opening up portals to another dimension. They've seen things and been able to do some weird anomalies. And did you know Geneva, right there on the French-Swiss border, was also the long-term home base for the Illuminati and the place from the Frankenstein myth? More going on here than meets the eye. So what is it about demonology and magic? Do you believe in magic? Is there a song like that? And what did these pictures tell me? Why is the Church of Satan the fastest going church in the country right now? Why are they trying to put up pictures of the devil in Oklahoma, Arkansas, Detroit, having a big party, and so much more? All the promotion and propaganda to disarm we the people, and the Rainbow Coalition, transgender, pansexual, homosexual, and even propaganda, anti-Christian activity, and all kinds of other activity. A lot of destruction all over the world, and there seems to be a lot of evidence that they're using advanced technologies. Fires in California, Washington, Canada, all over Europe. Dane Wigington, Geoengineering Watch, saying that the elites are panicking and they're setting the world on fire to trying to put the soot into the air like a volcano to battle global warming. Then they bring us these hurricanes that are kind of weird, and a lot of people are finding evidence that they believe shows that these storms and hurricanes and deluges of water are being controlled by electromagnetic technologies. And I have been taking photos and videoing during those periods here in the mountains of North Carolina, and you can look at some of the people's explanations on those satellite images. And apparently they go with a very broad scope. Here's where the storm is, coming either from across the ocean off the coast of Africa towards the North Carolina shore, or off of the Yucatan coming up towards the Florida shore. They seem to take a wider scope and they dump chemicals around the perimeter, which creates electromagnetic effect because the chemicals are heavy metals. And then when they have the HARP transmitters, 40 acres of these transmitters in Alaska and Puerto Rico and Norway, strategically located all over the world, they can polarize the sky, and also with the increase in the cell phone towers with big, thick 1-inch cables and ELF technologies, very low frequencies, satellite system, directed energy weapons, I think they can cause these big cyclones or create electromagnetic fields to stall these hurricanes or steer them. That's a lot to say. I think there are some people bent on destroying the world as we know it, and apparently, like the Georgia USA Guidestones tell us, They want to reduce the population to a manageable 500 million people worldwide. And that means 6 billion people have to die. And even Bill Gates recently said that 40 million might die this season, flu season, from a fast-moving pathogen. His words, not mine. And the Sun newspaper said 400 million might die this flu season. And apparently they're predicting a huge collapse of the stock market on Monday, October 15th. And we have sustainability issues, water issues, terrorism issues, economic issues, and all these other things. And it just seems like we're under attack. So here I wanted to find out what is behind this. How does it make sense in my mind? And what was this particular religion in Spain that caused all the Jews to either convert to Christianity or leave? And a lot of them did leave. And the ones who didn't, the conversos or the Moranos, apparently were still suspect, doing things, practicing this Jewish religion. What is it? And then I remember reading the Encyclopedia Judaica, and it says historically the culture was Kabbalism. So that's part of their religion. And I've been reading some of their books, and then I got this inspiration to look up Jewish magic on Yahoo image site, print out the pictures, click all the links, and have this many pages printed out. And I've been reading it, and many of these people into witchcraft or Jewish magic clearly say Kabbalah is magic and black magic is witchcraft. Look how much paperwork I have here. So I'm connecting the dots. As much as my mind and other people's minds want to be in denial, you can't deny that with President Donald Trump announcing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, and then the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, in his speech declaring, "We have the temple, we have the temple." And there is the sacred symbol, the 7-candlestick menorah, which is on the White House lawn during Christmas instead of the Christian symbols we used to have. And I've been learning so much more. The 6-pointed star is for some demon god called Rephaim. And this other image of this other character is King Cyrus, who helped the Jews rebuild the Second Temple. So they've got President Donald Trump's picture on there, and he's done a lot of suspect things that he said he wouldn't do. He wasn't going to continue this false war, and a lot of people know 911 was an inside job. So what is it about magic or psychic abilities that we all should know and come to grips with? These people that crucified Jesus, who gave us an added commandment, we are to love one another. And apparently these demons are destructive and enemies of humankind demons. And apparently they're controlled by people who understand magic, and that would be people who understand the Kabbalah. And for a lot of Jewish people, historically, that has been their culture and their religion. And they've been accused of that. They even had the Inquisition. Those are the people who were targeted. The conversos, the Moranos. So I've been trying to figure it out. And like I said, I'm not without some knowledge. I can give you some clues here. Go watch my video on this one, Carlos Castellanda, A Separate Reality. Going down there from California to Mexico, living with a shaman. Very interesting book to read. I made a video on this, or two. Series 93. You can go watch it. So the short story is he learned how to take the peyote and some other drugs, and it was very dangerous. These entities you will run across in the separate reality, the invisible world that's all around us, I've been learning, is a very dangerous place to be. And pretty much they're all around us all over the planet, so I've been reading. and they pretty much leave us alone unless we get into their territory or we summon them. And apparently a lot of people into the occult these days, there is a serious uptick in possession. Apparently in Italy, they requested more exorcists from the Vatican. Ireland was training more exorcist priests. China's been having possession cases. Ohio and other states in the United States with young people playing with Ouija boards and the occult had to be taken away in straitjackets. So the invisible reality seems to exist. And I never thought it didn't. I'm a firm believer that we're spiritual beings in these biological bodies. So you can go watch the videos. This is just one of my investigation. And I have, this is series 223. 223 book reviews, and some of the reviews had numerous books, so it's well over 250 books. Closing in on 600 videos, and many of them are 2 hours. So we're talking 700 or 800 hours of documentaries I made, plus the videos on sky spraying and HARP transmitters and other things, press releases, New World Order. I have a couple different series going along, depending on what I want to talk about. The July and August, the live streaming events until YouTube shut me down. Some people saying I was getting too close, and I think I am. And of course I made a video on the books of Enoch. Apparently some dude who was taken up to heaven, shown around, writes it all in the book, talks about the fallen angels. Even the fallen angels recruited Enoch to go speak to God on their behalf because they were cast out and being punished. But God wouldn't have it. He wouldn't listen to Enoch. Go watch videos on the book of Enoch. Go watch mine. Very complicated story, but I guess if you stick it out long enough, you'll figure it out. Series 116. I think I made a couple of videos, 3 or 4 on, because I read these things from page to page and try to figure it out. So I guess the bottom line is are there spiritual entities all around us, and are there some demons and destructive entities that really possess and control and hate humans, especially if you get in their territory or you summon them? And Max Long, I've gone over his books. I've made videos on him. He went over to Hawaii and spent a lot of time with the kahunas, walking on fire and enslaving and controlling deceased spirits and demons. And some of these kahunas, witch doctors, if you want to call them that, shamas, if you paid them money, if they were unsavory characters, they would send the spirits out to kill somebody. And what the spirit would do, it would possess somebody, and they would have something called a wasting. They would just start dying and no energy. And apparently the doctors, according to Max Long in these books, I've got a couple of them, in the Hawaii, they recognized the symptoms, and they couldn't do anything about it. They would have to go find that kahuna shama witch doctor and force him to recall the demons to stop the person from wasting away. The Secret Behind the Miracles and Max Long Series 138. And of course, Edgar Casey, I made a lot of videos on this book, and I intend to continue my research. I have many of Edgar Casey's book on Atlantis and Jesus. And so I know all the kinds of things that he said, and I put that together up here in my brain. And the channeled material, these are just a couple books. This is series 223. So the Ra material, channeling Ra, that's an ancient Egyptian deity, god, if you will, connected with Osiris and Isis and Horus, the all-seeing eye on the dollar bill, and the obelisk in all of our city squares, parks, every city, every town. Ra, his son Osiris, Horus, the all-seeing eye, the obelisk, and all the other symbols in our society for this mystery religion. And of course, the government. I've gone over numerous people who were involved in the government remote viewing programs, being able to go into trances, leave their body, and see this other world and report, even possess other people. Maybe they wanted to go over there and possess a Russian general and even have him pull out his gun and shoot himself or shoot somebody else. So apparently there's a lot of power if you can learn how to leave your body and possess somebody else or appear to somebody. Even there's another one here. These video, that was series 6. And the raw material was series 122. Edgar Casey was series 112. So like I said, I'm not without some knowledge, and I've been working on this, going on my 6th year, trying to figure out what is this religion that has always caused so much disturbance with people all over the world, the religion the Jewish people were practicing, which apparently is part of the Kabbalah, which is a derivative of witchcraft and magic. Something the Pharaoh was into in ancient Egypt, a lot of those hieroglyphics look very spooky. So again, even though I know a lot, there's still things I'm learning. You can go get a big thick book like this called Mysticism, part of the Theosophist Society and those people. This book, Evelyn Underhill, was published. Look at this picture in here. Published in 1911, so I have a lot of old books. And another one I like to share is this one. If you go to Peru, even like I think David Icke and many other people did who have talk shows, and they said, yeah, I went down there and I took some ayahuasca. Even Max Egan said he did that. And they said, yeah, that other world, it does exist. And I've showed these pictures of what people see. They found one particular shaman, witch doctor in Peru, and he was a pretty good person doing paintings and drawings. So one professor from the North United States brought him some paper and some colored pencils and said, draw us pictures what you see when you take ayahuasca and these drugs and go into these trances. What do you see? And a lot of us have strange dreams. Where do they come from? What do they mean? And the powers that be controlling our world, a lot of them, these senators and presidents and CEOs, all come from Council of Foreign Relations, skull and bones like George Bush Jr., John Kerry, his father, George Bush Sr., his father beyond him, and they come from all these Freemasonic organizations, even George Washington. And so you got these Illuminati characters who taken over the Freemasons. They're supplying us with our politicians and our leaders, the banking system. And apparently they think there's too many of us, and we've been under attack for quite a while. They've spent the last 100 years serious scientific research into advanced technologies, maybe even getting some kind of technologies from the other side, like Nikola Tesla said he did. He was psychic when he was young, having visions and dreams and hearing voices. He even said that on stage. So if the Jewish people who control the world, the Zionist Jewish people, the Kabbalah people into the mystery religion, controlling everything, the banking system, bringing us World War I and World War II, 9/11, and so much more, many presidents all over the world assassinated, citizens, torture, throwing people out of helicopters. I've been making videos out of this stuff on these books I've been going over. Very bizarre. So I'm trying to figure out what is it about these people that makes them such demonic, pathological, sick, insane, sinister people. And apparently they're planning on a global world order. And they put together the artificial intelligence systems to monitor us, to execute things, to shadow ban our websites and our material, censor people, shut us up so that people searching can't find you, promoting the pansexual, homosexual, transgender, anti-Christian, anti-nationality, globalism agenda with all kinds of occult symbolism. And I've gone over a lot of evidence. They've been doing this for a long time. And then with this little incident where I looked up Jewish magic and printed out all this stuff, and I've been reading, and some of these witches and some of these people and some of these well-known books said that Kabbalah is magic, and magic, black magic, and they practice it. They get paid for it throughout history. I'm going to show that. The Jews did, predominantly. Other people were into some of this occult, and you didn't have to be Jewish to also be a witch. But predominantly, seems to be where it came from. It was a cultural thing, even according to the Encyclopedia Judaica. So here I am collecting this information, putting the dots together. And I've been reading this book for the past couple days. I got it in the mail, which I'm going to read for the second half of this video. Just wanted to put the story together. And all these other books I've been making book reviews on lately, I need to go back through all of them. Here they are. Up to series 122. So there's 22 books from here all the way to the beginning since I started the 201 series and going on my 6th year of making videos. So I'm closing in on 23 here. So it'd probably take me another year to get to 300, provided we're all still here with all this gloom and doom predicted and prophesized and apparently happening that we're all witnessing, including the insane sky spraying of chemicals, maybe biologicals, even in the mountains here in North Carolina this past couple days. Since Michael, and before and during, I didn't fail to notice it, and I took pictures and videos. I will be putting that together and releasing it. So who are these people that are into this magic, black magic, Kabbalah, witchcraft, and apparently part of the people who want the global world order, the mystery religion, the secret societies that President John Kennedy warned us about just before his assassination? And many other people have been assassinated and imprisoned and discredited and framed. And maybe they put porn on somebody's computer or some other setup. You have to be careful because they're very smart. They've been into mind control. They can even abduct somebody and torture them and do things to them so that when they leave, they're virtual zombies and vegetables. They don't remember anything. All real. And we've seen this happen from the material I've been going over in Central, South America, Indonesia, all over the Middle East, all over the world. The American Indians a couple hundred years ago. And they did the same thing in Central South America. 40, 50 million in the 1900s were killed in South America. And Africa, they've been doing a lot of wholesale slaughter there for a long time. Apparently even releasing AIDS viruses and Ebola and other things that we've seen in the news. And I don't even want to talk about the Middle East since 9/11 and before. I think the first attack on Iraq was before 9/11. And they had a plan 3 or 4 years before 9/11 called the Project for the New American Century that said they had to do everything that they did. And 23 days later, after 9/11, this guy, the Prime Minister of Israel, in a heated argument in his Congress, October 3rd, 23 days after September 11th, 2001, he said, "Don't worry about America. We control America, and the Americans know it." So they pulled off 9/11. 23 days later, this guy says this, and it made the news. People were driving their cars, and it was announced in the news. It was so shocking that he said it. Somebody happened to release it. He went into a coma right away. No, they didn't want him to explain that. So you got the Project for a New American Century, created by some Zionist Jewish people, William Crystal, Bill Crystal, and Kagan, and also signed by the Bush family and others, Rumsfeld. Project for a New American Century, talking about planning the entire overthrow of the Middle East. This guy is saying this. And also other documents in World War I, the Balfour Agreement. World War II, another declaration that after the war, the whole world was going to be handed to the Jewish people. I've showed that document. You can look it up. I looked it up. Unbelievable. October 6, 1940, at the beginning of World War II. So I suppose the Britain and America and all those people wanted to have the Jews ensure they were going to win World War II. So they said after the war, the Jews will be given the world to have a new world order. I've read this before. You can go read it yourself. They published this agreement in the newspapers because in World War I they tried to renege on the Balfour Agreement. So the Jewish people, the Zionist Jewish people, into the Kabbalah, which appears to be black magic and witchcraft, Satanism, made them publish it in a paper. They don't teach you that in high school or college. So I've been reading this book on Jewish magic and superstitions for the past couple days, since I got in the mail, since I started this investigation. They have many other books, but they were kind of pricey. I managed to find this one out of about a dozen that are well known. If you do go on Jewish Magic and look at the pictures and click the links, you'll see all the other books. I will be going over that binder with all that material. I've been reading the material, and that's where I picked up on that the witches were claiming that witchcraft is Jewish magic, which is also called Kabbalah. Some ancient mysticism back there during the Egyptian times. When Moses, remember Moses throwing down his staff, his staff turned into a snake, a serpent, because the pharaohs, two magicians, one on each side of the pharaoh, threw down their two staves, which turned into two snakes, if you've seen the movie, or you read the Bible. But Moses' serpent was larger and ate the other two serpents. Then we know about all the plagues and the parting of the sea. And then, of course, 1,000 years later with Jesus walking on water, casting out unclean spirits, multiplying a couple fish or a couple loaves of bread to feed a whole multitude of people, and converting water into wine even at a wedding. So this stuff with the spiritual world and God and angels and demons and entities, with all this stuff I've just showed you, and I've got many more books I've gone over on these topics. Helena Blavatsky of the Theosophist Society, getting all of her information from invisible masters beings. Admittingly, I went over the book with her. That would be series 200, I believe. Unbelievable. Isis Unveiled, The Secret Doctrine, books on Rosicrucian. I'm looking at my bookcase. The Black Pope, Eric Van Doniken's The Gold of the Gods, those caves in Ecuador where they have all these weird-looking beings that look like demons. So what do we know about our world? Do you want to know a little bit about magic? So, do you want to know about reality? The powers of evil. Like I said, I've been reading this. I've been reading chapter 1 and chapter 2 and the introduction, the foreword. Do you want to know about reality? Or do you want to believe there's a galactic federation in a huge spaceship parked in orbit, and the Palladians and the Andromedans are coming back because they made us years ago. The Anunnaki, Nibiru. Or do you think what's in the Bible just might be the facts? The Book of Enoch just might be true. And the hieroglyphics in Egypt, if you can interpret them, they might be telling us the true story. Serpent symbols, American Indians, Mayans, Chinese, Hindus, India, all over the world. Hawaii, the kahunas, walking on fire, controlling demons and spirits, Jesus casting out unclean spirits. Apparently, when you get possessed, if you get possessed, and God forbid you don't, I don't want anybody possessed. Apparently, you can appear ill and get diseases and cancer and stuff like that. Possession can cause that. So instead of a cure for a lot of ailments, it's a matter of casting out unclean spirits, entities attached to us. Just a thought. And that's not without some foundation. Many times people with serious ailments and mentally completely oblivious or gone, like insane people, when Jesus cast out the unclean spirit, they return to normal. All right, so the powers of evil, page 25, chapter 3. At the basis of Jewish magic lay the belief in a vast, teeming middle world. A world neither of the flesh nor altogether and exclusively of the spirit. So between the spiritual world and this flesh world, there apparently is a nether world, a middle world. It says middle world. Demons and angels, to be counted only in myriads. So myriads, I have to go look up some of these words because I'm not quite sure what they mean. There's quite a few words in here. But apparently these demons and angels, if you were to count them, only in myriads, which is a very large or indefinite number, means almost, you can't count them, there's too many, populated that world. So this middle world has an untold amount of entities in it. Though their intermediary, through their intermediacy, so controlling them or communicating with them, through their intermediacy, the powers of magic were brought into operation. So there you have it, a beginning understanding of witchcraft and magic and the Kabbalah, and even with rebuilding King Solomon's temple. Let's not forget, King Solomon's temple was to house the Ark of the Covenant, which apparently had some kind of entity in it that gave them directions and advice, and they took the Ark of the Covenant into battle and opened up the lid, and this entity came screaming out, looking like lightning flying through the air, killing all of the enemy. If you've seen the Indiana Jones movie. So apparently this netherworld, these entities, like with the kahunas I just showed you of Hawaii, Max Long, you can control these and contain these entities and use them for power. And by the way, King Solomon of Israel, called Kingdom of Judea back then, and built the first King Solomon's temple. He controlled these demons and got his power through some kind of magic ring with a six-pointed star. And apparently that represents some leading demon called Rephaim. So he had this control of Rephaim and apparently controlled other demons. And they want to rebuild King Solomon's temple. And our President Donald Trump, along with that picture of King Cyrus in this picture, I guess they're going to rebuild King Solomon's temple and fulfill a biblical prophecy of the world controlled by an antichrist. So apparently there's an infinitesimal amount of these beings in this middle world between the spiritual world, heaven, and the physical world here. According to this book here, Jewish Magic and Superstition. You can only take this stuff slow. There's no hurrying it with all these books I go over. It's just a slow, methodical, one book at a time, one video at a time, one day at a time, one hurricane at a time, Florence and Michael, and chemtrailing sky spraying day, and crashing of stock markets, and all this other evidence if you pay attention to your surroundings. There is a plan, and they've been telling us. They give us the movies, Hunger Games, and Divergent, and Mad Max, and so many more. Lucifer program, making him out to be some kind of cool dude. The most frequently employed terms for magic were the, I don't want to say some of these words because I think they can actually cause problems. Terms for magic, and I'll show it to you though. A lot of these words, like when I went over series 23, my finger's on that line if you want to pause your computer. But even in the Book of the Law, Aleister Crowley, it said in the material in the front, do not pronounce these incantations and evocations. And another book I went over, the book of all these evocations, when you read them, don't pronounce them. You can read the material, but don't pronounce it. Have a little talk with God and swear that you believe in Jesus, or have a cross in your hand. This, from what I've been reading, this can be very dangerous stuff. Invocations and conjuration of angels and demons. The particular role of the angels, heavenly counterparts of all earthly phenomenon, as well as the direct servants and emissaries of God, closest to his ear, rendered powerful indeed the man who possessed the secret of bending them to his will. So if you understand magic and witchcraft, you know how to bend these demons to your will. And of course, if you want to be powerful or possess something or kill somebody and do all those kinds of things, even as a group of people or a culture, you can do that. They had the Inquisition. It was all these people that were accused of this, particularly the conversos and Moranos in Spain, practicing the Kabbalah, which this material in these books on the Jewish magic, the web links I clicked and all that material, says that the Kabbalah is magic, and magic, black magic, is witchcraft. But even Jesus was casting out unclean spirits and healing people, so I'm not completely convinced that knowing these technologies and having these abilities to be a healer, and there were shamans all over the world for thousands of years, but even those shamans, when they trained a new shaman, you couldn't get a guarantee that person wouldn't turn out to be an evil person, an evil shaman. So I guess even in the spirit world, that's why probably, like the Bible says, a third of the angels were cast out of heaven and put into this nether world, so it seems. This is part of this global world order that's coming, New World Order, the New Age propaganda. So it seems. And they have a lot of advanced technologies, and they're using them, slowly biting away at our world economically and spiritually, and causing a lot of people to be in fear. So these angels closest to his ear rendered powerful indeed the man who possessed the secret of bending them to his will. The demons, on the other hand, invested with all the fearsome potencies that a still primitive, animalistic folk imagination could conjure up, were equally capable of making the fame and fortune of those who could exert a magic power over them. Talmudic Jewry, Jewish people into the Talmud, And not all Jewish people are into this. The New Old Testament, sort of called the Torah, I'm not an expert, but the people who apparently were into the Torah Jews and Torah rabbis, were the good guys. And there's hardly any Torah rabbis or the religion existing now. Apparently the Talmud rabbis, Zohar, the people into the black magic and global order, Zionism, have managed to eliminate the good Jews who wouldn't go along. And there's a lot of evidence of that throughout history. So even in material I've read in Israel, if you believed in Jesus and you were Jewish, you might likely find a bomb in your mailbox. So these people had to control their own people to get them to where they are today, where you got William Christo, Bill Christo, and Kagan and other people creating a document, a project for a new American century with the Bushes and Rumsfeld signing all these documents. You can look it up. 4 years prior to 9/11, describing what they were going to do. And then, of course, 23 days later, the Prime Minister of Israel, Sharon, says, don't worry about America. We control America. And in 1913, they took over our money supply by putting Woodrow Wilson in place. And 6 months later, brought us into World War I. And then when Britain was losing the war, they made a deal called the Balfour Agreement so they could get the Palestinians land to create the State of Israel, to rebuild the temple, which houses the Ark of the Covenant, which is possessed by some kind of being who would go out there and slaughter people, and told them they were the chosen people and they could go to the land of Canaan and kill all the Canaanites. Can't make this stuff up, but you can look it up. All right, the demons, on the other hand, invested with all the fearsome potencies that a still primitive, animalistic folk imagination could conjure up, were equally capable of making the fame and fortune of those who could exert a magic power over them. Talmudic Jewry owned a highly elaborated demonology. Talmudic Jewry, the Talmudic Jews, not the Torah Jews, owned a highly elaborated demonology. So they owned a demonology, call it a manual on witchcraft, distinguishing between classes and even individuals with a wealth of detail concerning the nature and pursuits of the evil spirits. Its elements grew naturally out of the fertile popular imagination, convinced as it was of the reality of the spirit world, and fortified by a rich tradition drawn largely by the folklores of Egypt and Babylon and Persia. So the Kabbalah came later. The ancient mystery religion existed before that. So the Kabbalah was the Jewish people's version of a condensed manual book about this kind of magic and behavior. So before, because if you think about it, it was 3,000 years ago when Moses helped the Hebrews get away from the control of the Pharaoh. 2,000 years ago was Jesus. But apparently 6,000 or 7,000 years ago was the Great Flood. And before that was an advanced civilization that was highly polluted with the genetic engineering's giants and monsters who built all the monuments we see on the planet today. So whoever God was and that people in power, they had to destroy the life on Earth. And according to the Hopi Indians and Eric Van Donigan and the caves in Ecuador and caves all over the world, remnants of the human race were saved all over the world. Even our story as Christians with Noah's Ark. So before the Great Flood, and there's evidence all over the world by all the indigenous native peoples, stories of the Great Flood, even with the Hopis, that some kind of entities, beings, helped them build underground facilities or in mountains, like I said, in Ecuador and Romania and Turkey, all over the world there's evidence of these survival places. So our perspective on reality needs to be broadened. We need to wake up to the truth, realizing we are spiritual beings, and we need to come to grips with it and understand how we think and believe in God, and in my case, a Christian Jesus, and whatever the Islamic Arabs need to believe in, or the Buddhist, or the Hindus. I'm sure the prophets and spiritual entities guiding those people may have been guiding them correctly. They existed before Moses bringing the Hebrews out of Egypt 3,000 years ago, or 2,000 years ago when Jesus arrived. But then again, it does say in the Bible that the whole world will know about Jesus at the end times. And with the internet and the way the world is, probably everybody knows about Jesus, as prophesied. And everybody can make a simple choice and say no to this demonism, Satanism, if you want to live. And it says in the Bible also, I will be a shield to those who seek refuge in me. So definitely envision your whole body sitting in God's hand and say, hey, I can't deal with this. You take care of me. Because that's what it boils down to. There is a spiritual demonic battle taking place. And I'm not trying to be a religious preacher here. I'm reading these books and these words and these pages. What else am I supposed to think? Talmudic Jewry owned a highly elaborated demonology. Its elements grew naturally out of the fertile popular imagination. It was the reality of the spirit world, fortified by the rich tradition drawn largely from the folklores of Egypt and Babylon. We've all seen the Egyptian hieroglyphics and the obelisk in front of the pyramids and the other monuments. And why do they have obelisk in all of our city squares and a lot of these Egyptian mystery religion monuments all over our country? And demons and gargoyles on our buildings and pyramidal structures. Even a lot of the skyscrapers these days look like giant owls at the top or pyramids. There is some mystery religion controlling our world right now, and they have advanced technologies, and I believe we're under attack. And so do a lot of other people believe that. I just wanted to try to help people see who's doing it. I was trying to help myself see who's doing it, make sense of this stuff. This lure seemed a dual need. It conveyed the power of control and at the same time self-protection. So I guess there's two aspects to this Kabbalah, black magic, witchcraft. Is one, to control these beings in this middle world, demons or angels, I guess, and for self-protection. And remember, I've gone over a lot of books. I just showed 4 or 5, but I've got hundreds of books I've made book reviews on, and a lot of them are on psychic research and abilities and authors and Kabbalah and secret societies and Freemasons and Rosicrucians. And so I have a lot to think about. Go look up a book on the Rosicrucians. Go watch my videos on it and see what it says in there about these beings. Rosicrucians, that was crazy for me to learn that. Apparently, according to them, God put Samuel on earth first, a divine being. And Satan was short for Samuel. And so Samuel wouldn't be alone, this God type of DNA being. Out of the earth, he created Eve. So this Samuel, divine being, according to the Rosicrucians, not what I believe, but I've read a lot of material. So this Samuel, Satan, impregnated Eve, and they had a son named Cain. And then Samuel said, to heck with this, I don't like earth, I'm going back to the heavens spiritual world. So he abandoned Eve and his son Cain, who was half human and half divine. So God, according to the Rosicrucians, felt sorry for Eve and created her a husband, Adam and Eve. They had a son and named him Abel. Cain was jealous of their son. His father had abandoned him. So he killed Abel, becoming the first murderer. And then Adam and Eve had a second son, Seth. Anyways, according to the Rosicrucians, the lineages or the descendants of we humans are from the two entities. The divine Samuel's son, Cain, who was the first murderer, Samuel, Satan. Or the second son after Cain killed Abel, Seth. So we're either lineage DNA from Seth family line, or we're from people are from the family line of Cain, the demonic being. Truth to that, I don't know. That's what's in the Rosicrucian book. Like I said, I've read a lot of books, and I have a lot of material to draw back up on when I read what I'm reading right here. But the rabbis were generally opposed to demon magic, though they were not so severe with it as with sympathetic magic. So I did look up sympathetic magic. Some of the most distinguished Talmudic authorities themselves had recourse to it at times. They frequently expressed their strong disapproval. Even in the Middle Ages, a few rabbis were ready to permit it. So what was sympathetic magic? But the ancient strictures against a method which is forbidden but not punishable by death. So let me look at that document, sympathetic magic. I take the time and look up these words because they mean something. All right, here we go. I went and looked it up on the internet earlier. Sympathetic magic, an alternative belief system, a type of magic in which it is sought to produce a large-scale effect. When I read this, I said, oh my, this is crazy. And I'm thinking about the Super Bowl halftime shows in the last few years with Madonna, Beyonce, etc., Katy Perry, that were all demonic, clearly with horns, the tunnel opening in Switzerland, demons with horns dropping from the sky, everybody naked, groping each other on a railway car. If you watch my videos, you know there are many examples. So this sympathetic magic, alternative belief system, a type of magic in which it is sought to produce a large-scale effect, often at a distance, by performing some small-scale ceremony resembling it. So these ceremonies were resembling these magic rituals like a Indiana Jones movie, such as the pouring of water on an altar to induce rain. So this is kind of a voodoo thing. So think about that. Super Bowl halftime shows. Sympathetic magic. Magic predicted on the belief that one thing or event can affect another at a distance as a consequence of the sympathetic connection between them. And I do understand the philosophy or science behind voodoo, where they take some of a person's clothing or their hair and they make a little doll. The reason they do that is because the hair or the skin or the clothing that they took from that person resonates the same DNA frequency as that person. Sympathetic. So you have the real person here and you have the doll with the hair. Between the doll and the person, there is a resonant wave. Because they resonate the same thing. Just like if you take two guitars and you hit the A string and this one you don't, this A string will start ringing because it's vibrating at the same size as the A string, like a tuning fork. You strike this one will also start striking. Resonance. So resonance with human DNA, which is at a very high frequency, occurs. So then they have something I've learned about with the Theosophist Society called thought forms. When you think something or you imagine a picture of something, it actually creates an energy. So if you're holding a doll with a resonant wave to that human and you create a thought form, and you have a knife in your hand and you're stabbing the doll, that's a pretty strong thought form. That image or frequency and message, just like a radio or a TV program over the airwaves, when you get the picture, will reach that other spiritual being, that human, and he'll actually believe that he's being stabbed with a knife or set on fire like voodoo. Like I said, I've been reading a lot of books, trying to understand, WTH, what the heck is going on? So back to this book. All right, continuing on. The intensification of the religious spirit that had proceeded through the intervening centuries produced a feeling that the demons had no proper place within Judaism, though they could not be ousted, and the widespread fear of them persisted. Traffic with the spirits of uncleanliness, as they were often called, spirits of uncleanliness, was repugnant to the Jew, who regarded them as inimical, harmful or unfriendly, not alone to mankind, but the pursuit of the religious life. Now remember, this book is written by a Jewish person trying to defend the Jews and their historic association with magic. So you do have to be using some discernment when you're reading by who's the author, but there's a lot of valuable information in here. So this guy is saying here that they were produced a feeling that the demons had no proper place with Judaism, but they go on to say here so much more that's the opposite of that. As they were often called, was repugnant to the Jew, who regarded them as inimical, not alone to mankind, but the pursuit of religious life. And a lot of Torah Jews, that was the case. And accusations of witchcraft and magic, was existing from 500 to 1400, 1500, 1,000 years. Good portion of the Middle Ages. That's what it was all about. The great development of name magic, so knowing the names of these gods or demons or beings, I guess is a way to control them or get access to them. Summon them into the presence. Like rubbing a bottle in I Dream of Genie or a magic lamp with Aladdin's lamp. Apparently in the Middle East, the Arabs have some kind of being called the jinn, which we all call a ghost or a demon. And apparently a lot of places in the desert are possessed by these jinn. They know about this stuff. But of course, we dumbed down Americans don't know all these things. Intentionally, they don't want us to know. The great development of name magic, on the other hand, crowded out the earlier form. Invocation of demons, in saying mantras, abracadabra, hocus pocus. Those aren't the ones they use. But invocation of demons, therefore, occupied a very minor position in medieval Jewish magic. So they're saying it occupied a minor position in medieval Jewish magic. They are saying that the Jewish people back then were practicing magic, but invocations and calling these demons into existence and using them for their power was a minor position of medieval Jewry. And of course, for me and the people watching my videos, what we really want to know is what is reality and what can these people do and why are they doing all these evil things all over the world in this global world order and bringing us World War I and World War II and 9/11 and the horrific murder and suffering and torture and theft of we the people all over the planet for so many years. Who are these people? The demons were employed almost exclusively in divination, foreseeing the future, finding buried treasure. I could tell you some stories about stuff I've been reading. Jewish demonology consequently experienced little inner development during the Middle Ages, but clung closely to its early forms, and new departures were mainly borrowing from the French and German sources, which in itself is an indication that the estimation of demons in magic has depreciated. Interest in the evil spirits centered mainly about their malevolent nature and implacable enmity toward man, enmity, and hence the need for the best methods of protection against them. And let's not forget the northern Germany and Nordics, and even the northern people of Britain and Scotland. Some kind of entities were living up there, and they were into some kind of mystery religion associated with the Druids. So it's not just these Kabbalist Jewish people who were into controlling these beings from the middle world. And let's not forget also about the Mayans and the pyramids and sacrificing people. So apparently this mystery religion isn't exclusively to the Jewish people at one time in the past. And of course they've gone through a lot of trouble to wipe this knowledge off of the face of the world, which is why a lot of people from the Freemasons and other mystery religion temples and lodges and cults make their initiates swear under threat of death not to divulge the secrets. Illuminati, Freemasons, and high levels, not low levels. People leave a comment and say, "Oh, my uncle was a Mason." They recruit all kinds of people. But if you're not selected to go higher up, you're not evil enough. You just wind up being part of that social organization. And I'm sure the other organizations do. They recruit people into witchcraft. They probably don't share everything coming out of the gate. Rosicrucians, Knights of Malta, Knights of Columbus, Council of Foreign Relations, George Bush's Skull and Bones. They got to get something on you. They got to be convinced you're part of this evil team. So don't try to defend them. And even they, Albert Pike and many others, admitted the lower level people recruited were dupes. Even in Protocols of Zion, the manual for controlling the world, the Jewish utopia, they even say all these other people in high-level Freemasonry and other non-Jewish people who are helping them, they laugh and mock these people and say they're going to be destroyed also. All these people who wind up working for the police department and help killing us and taking us to FEMA camps thinking they're saving their hides. Read the Protocols of Zion and the Jewish Utopia and many other books. Hardly a murmur of doubt do we hear of the existence and reality of evil spirits. So in these religions, with the Druids, the American Indians and their spirits, and the Mayans, and you saw the pictures from Peru taking ayahuasca, and the Hawaiian kahunas controlling spirits. I made the videos. So there is hardly do we ever hear anybody doubting the reality of these evil spirits. Evil spirits. The Talmudic literature, both of the Argothic folklore and the Halachi, accepted their presence as axiomatic, which means, I had to go look it up, self-evident. And these are the people, if you go listen to what Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said in Fink's Bar, go look it up. They're going to destroy America and make us regret not wanting to be their slaves. Prime Minister Sharon of Israel said, don't worry about America, we control America, and the Americans know it, 23 days after 9/11. And some of the previous prime ministers and leaders of the Jewish people have said some horrific things. I've got a big, thick, fat book right here. This big yellow one. Full of material. I can't even pick it up, it's so heavy. Vatican Assassins. And many other books. So it is self-evident. If people don't want to believe it, what can I do? What can anybody do? They don't want to believe that stuff being dumped in the sky is not good for we people. What are you going to do? The insanity of all those microwave cell phone towers going up 5G with 1-inch thick cables. Do a little bit of homework. You wouldn't stick your head in a microwave oven, would you? You're not supposed to have your cell phone right next to your head. A lot of people are getting cancer. Look at Fukushima and so much more. We're under attack. And there is a spiritual component to it involving these evil entities and the people who are practicing some kind of religion to create some kind of global world order. We may readily understand them, how it is that in the Middle Ages, a people fed on this literature no longer questioned. So the only people who don't believe in this stuff is people that have never looked into it or want to deny that it exists. A lot of people don't want to see what's really happening about all those Arabs after 9/11, all those countries. Does somebody really believe all those Arabs, men, women, and children, in all those towns and all those countries needed to be really destroyed in a horrific way? Shock and awe, dropping phosphorus, molten lava from the sky, machine gun fire, endless amounts of missiles and bombs. Even the United States troops had a high rate of suicide amongst the men we sent over there to do the killing. They couldn't live with themselves. The Kabbalah indeed accorded the demons an integral role in a cosmic design in which the right and the left are the opposing currents of pure and impure powers, filling the world and dividing it between the Holy One and his adversary. In all the medieval Jewry, there were few who raised their voices against this superstition. So in medieval Jewry, people weren't raising their voices against this Kabbalah, magic, witchcraft. Some Karaites vigorously refuted such beliefs. So Karaites is another faction of Jewish people. They were totally opposed to this. And again, I know people watch my videos and they say, how dare you defend any Jewish people? Well, I'm here to tell you now, a lot of Jewish people did not join these Kabbalistic witchcraft black magic cults. So what is the percentage? Apparently the people in the hierarchy, the controllers, the banksters, the Illuminati, high-level Freemasons, and the people who control our world and controlling the generals and the troops and the technologies and the algorithms in the computers, the software, the artificial intelligence, the chemtrailing. You know, probably a lot of those pilots have been blackmailed or fearing for their families. And police people and military people who are going door to door, even apparently according to some videos in Hawaii right now because of the volcanoes, apparently a lot of people are being shuttled onto some barges, and apparently like in the hurricane off of Texas and other stories, people are disappearing all over the planet. And the people who are doing it probably either getting a lot of money and are mercenaries and don't care, apathy. But the short end of the stick is when it's all over, they're going to be eliminated also. According to my research. So some Karaites vigorously refuted such beliefs and characterized them as merely human imaginings. Memorides and Ibn Urza took a similarly strong stand. So, you got people like Benjamin Friedman. Please go listen to his famous speech. Benjamin Friedman, look it up. YouTube restricted that video that I published with his speech on it. Bloody Zion, Racial Zion, they restricted those. World Revolution, published in 1921 by Nestor Webster, showing what happened during the French Revolution and the plans to, kill a lot of us, depopulate the planet, and enslave mankind. They took that book review down. World Revolution, the plot against civilization. So we know who controls these major internet social media sites. And a lot of people are showing right now that they're censoring certain material, shadow banning it, your videos don't show up in search results. And also I've been checking a lot of these topics. When you do search them, you're going to get a lot of Snoops type results, a lot of ridicule and calling it foolishness. Of course they control the algorithms, the software. It's a deception. They're not going to let people know. And a lot of people are going to buy the deception. Oh, Snoop says that doesn't really exist. The Israelis really didn't attack the U.S. battleship Liberty and bomb it to smithereens and try to blame it on the Egyptians? No, of course not. They didn't have anything to do with 9/11, even though Webster Tarpley says so in many other books and much other investigations in 9/11 synthetic terror. All kinds of evidence. But Snoop says it doesn't happen in other sites. So there's no demons or evil spirits, and there's no dumping of chemicals in the sky, even if you can see it. Don't believe it. Don't worry about those cell phone towers and algorithms, and in 2015, Jade Helm 15 and all those tanks and equipment shuttled all over the U.S., having exercises like they're going to perform martial law, where artificial intelligence was going to control the scenario and decides who gets killed and who gets imprisoned and who is a acceptable part of the luciferic, satanic, New World Order, who will swear allegiance to the devil. Crazy words, I know it. But of course, I've only been researching since 2005. Took me a while to even begin to believe what I'm saying. It's just too much out there. I'll say that. I even went to see a #1 psychiatrist, Robert Shapiro, in Melbourne, Cocoa Beach, Florida, because I couldn't believe what I was seeing and taking pictures of the Sky Spring. He asked me what I was going to do about it. Put a little bump in my life. Not a word to this effect do we hear in the north of Europe. Our literature takes them as much for granted as did the Talmudic. Certain works, especially from the school of Judah, the Pious, revealed their activities on almost every page. Rashi repeated the Midrashic comment that every living thing represented in the ark included even the demons. So apparently the demons survived the great flood. If we are to believe Moses of Tachu, Ibn Ezra paid dearly for his hardihood in denying the existence of demons. Ibn Ezra wrote in his book, he says, "Of a surety there are no demons in the world. Verily he erred in this matter, for they were ever at his side. Indeed, they themselves proved their existence to him." So here was this leading, Jewish person putting in his book that denying the existence of demons. So apparently they went after him. and indeed they themselves prove their existence to him. I have heard from the people of England, where he died, that once when he was traveling through a forest, he came upon a large band of black dogs who glared at him banefully. Undoubtedly they were demons. So he's walking through the forest, and a whole band of black dogs confronted him and glare at him banefully. When he had finally passed through their midst, he felt seriously ill, and eventually he died of that illness. This incident was apparently evidence enough for our Moses, though we may question whether, if it occurred, it sufficed to convince the doughty Urba Israel. So what do you think? Manish B. Israel, writing in the middle of the 17th century, summed up the thought of the Middle Ages when, after demonstrating to his own satisfaction that demons do exist, by calling into service proofs on a threefold basis of tradition, reason, and the senses, he cited a long list of appropriate passages from Jewish literature and concluded, "The opinion of all Jewish authorities is that the biblical references to spirits are to be taken literally." So that's what the Jewish authorities think. And of course, with all the propaganda and social conditioning, they have a lot of we people all over the world these days denying Jesus and Christianity and calling them haters because they're not pro-homosexual agenda. People need to wake up. I'm not hating homosexual, gay people. I know people. They seem friendly enough. But there are people who are preaching something very evil to the young people in the schools and the movies and trying to change our societies. I don't hate anybody. I pray for everybody. But doing this research, it is what it is. There is a social conditioning, a plan going on, and there will be those people who are resistors, and apparently who will deny and not swear allegiance to the Lucifer, to the Satan, to the Antichrist. They didn't put President Donald Trump's picture on this coin for nothing. And the 7-candlestick menorah, the sacred symbol of the Jewish religion, which means it's part of the Kabbalah, and which is part of magic, black magic, demonology, fallen angels. And I've shown that in some of the pictures from magic, I see that 7-candlestick symbol. And now you can find it on the glass windows of the shopping stores this Christmas in their White House front lawn. The 7-candlestick sacred symbol. So if you pay attention, clearly what's going on with hate speech and all this other stuff, and the internet censoring people, social media, is something much bigger going on than most people have a clue about. So the opinion of the Jewish authorities, according to this book, sort of an expert book on Jewish magic and superstitions, is that biblical references to spirits are to be taken literally. So with all that I'm talking about and all that I've shown, I think a rational person would also take this stuff literally and all the things and see the deception for what it is. He lightly brushed aside the Maimonidean structure against the superstitions with the familiar objection that their author had been seduced by the philosopher's predilection for the testimony of reason and experience to the damage of his piety and faith of revelation. Menanzas B. Israel was expressing not his own opinion, but the judgment of the Jewish folk belief. So I will be reading from many of these books I've been making videos on lately. I have to go back through all 23 of them make a second part or a third part, because it certainly is telling us a story. And then, of course, physically, mentally, we can see. Go look on YouTube with all the threats of the stock market crashing on Monday, and more threats about volcanoes or pole shifting or terrorism or climate change. Even on the nightly news, they say if we don't reduce CO2 by 47%, we're going to continue to have catastrophic weather. While we can see they're spraying chemicals and they seemingly are controlling the weather, bringing us these catastrophic weather events in California and other places in the world, droughts and fires. And they have these advanced technologies. You can look it up: HARP transmitters, satellites in space, directed energy weapons. You can look up videos with military laser beams on battleships and planes. They got the beam coming out, destroying tanks and stuff like that. We the people need to wake up. 911 was an inside job. The banking system and all the economy is controlled by these people. If it crashes, they crashed it. And they know what happens to people when the system collapses. Most people will freak out. And whoever it is suggested they go kill, it's the Christian conservatives, and all the liberal progressives could riot in the street. Or maybe they'll demonize the progressives, liberals. Maybe they've set them up for the fall. And they'll tell all the people, like Mike Adams said in his video, that all we good people, family values, gun owners, Christian conservative Republicans need to side with the police and the military. And we need to get all these looters or rioters and eliminate them. So which party will fall, the left or the right? I don't think either party should fall. I think both parties ought to wake up and realize they're being controlled by the puppet masters who are into this satanic, luciferic, kabbalistic, black magic, demonization, unclean spirits, fallen angel, mystery religion. And thank you for watching my video on October 13th. Saturday, 2018. Rick Miracle reporting.